Hey guys, Metal Jesus here. Now, most of you who have been watching my channel for a while know that I grew up playing computer games as a kid, and in the 90s continued that path, loved playing PC games. Obviously, I worked at Sierra. Part of my job was to try to get these things to run. And so people often ask me, what do I recommend that they do if they want to play older MS-DOS games? Well, unfortunately the answer to that is no real easy task. That's because PC hardware changed so much during the 80s and 90s. I mean, if you think about it, CPU speeds doubled every couple of years. Dedicated sound cards and graphic cards were introduced during that time. The format that you sold the games on would change from floppy disks to CDs. And even hard drives got bigger and kind of more affordable. So it's very much a moving target when you want to go back and play quote unquote, MS-DOS games today. Now, thankfully, DOSBox came along and made it a lot easier to emulate, but you still ran into some configuration issues dealing with sound cards, and IRQ settings, mouse settings, graphics, also dealing with conventional versus expanded memory. There was a lot that you still sometimes had to learn. Well, recently, a lot of you have messaged me saying I should check out this project called eXoDOS, specifically when they got to version 6.0. And I'm so glad you did, because basically what this attempts to do is resolve all of that complexity trying to get older MS-DOS games to work and make them accessible for pretty much anybody with any skill level. And so that's what we're going to do today. I've been messing with this for several weeks now, and the best part of it is it's completely free. So I think you guys are going to really dig this. So we're going to dive into poking around in this product, checking it out, see all the features that it has. And in the meantime, I'm also going to be recommending some games that maybe you haven't heard of before. If you're looking to get into playing some MS-DOS games and digging a little bit deeper into the catalog, there might be something for you as well. So what exactly is eXoDOS? Well, it is a way to catalog, archive, and make playable pretty much every game that was developed for DOS. That means it supports over 7,600 games. 7,600 games. It's pretty wild.
I suppose you're wondering why you're here. It's simple. You're the best.
And I guess before we dive any deeper into that, I do want to state that, I am a big fan of sites like Steam and GOG making available older MS-DOS games for you to buy and also play on modern hardware. As you guys know, I have a massive GOG library that I really like. However, that is only scratching the surface of the games that came out during those decades. And this is really the thing about when you want to go and dig into MS-DOS games, is that there are thousands and thousands of them, many of them kind of long and forgotten. And so the reason why I wanted to dive into this is because this is a great way to explore all that. And so I don't necessarily think it takes away from sites like GOG, but just be aware that this, in my mind, is, I guess, kind of a companion piece to that, if you want. And like I said, it's completely free. However, there are a couple options you're going to want to know about before you dive right in. The first one being that the full download for this, the full torrent, is over 600 gigabytes in size. It is huge, it is massive, and it's going to take a while for you to download if you want all of the games. And by the way, that does not include the optional media add-on pack that they also created, which has a bunch of books, magazines, and soundtracks that you can also use with this. So that'll add another 160 gigabytes. So all told, this is a pretty big boy. But have no fear, there is a light version that comes in at only 5 gigabytes, which will give you the bare bones to start with. And then you can download games and add-ons as you want. So that's a good option for people if you're not entirely sure if this is going to be your thing. You don't have to commit to downloading a massive, 600 gigabyte file. You can just get the 5 gigabyte version if you want. But wait, that's not all. Then there is a physical release for fans like me who like to have something sitting on their shelf. So this is only $55 US, and it comes with a fully printed manual. It has a catalog talking about some of the biggest game publishers at the time. There's also a collectible metal coin in here, and of course you've got this really cool box. However, this does not come with any games at all. That's the thing, is that this project is not attempting to sell any of this stuff. This particular physical version of it is simply just for collectors like me who want to have something to sit on your shelf. You don't need this. You can just download everything that you want, but I think it's pretty cool that they give people this option. All right, with all that said, let's go ahead and dive into this. So basically what this does is it integrates in with Launchbox. So it uses Launchbox as the front end organizer, which is great because I'm already really familiar with this. It's actually what I use on my MAME arcade cab, but you don't have to use it there. I think a lot of people use it just in Windows on their gaming PC. It's fantastic. It supports arcades. It supports consoles and of course MS-DOS, and so it's nice that this integrates in with that. And the first thing that it does is it adds a universal game options. So instead of having a config file for every single MS-DOS game, which is what you normally have, well, you can set your preferences once and then use that instead of having to reinvent the wheel every single time you want to play a new game. Things like, do you want to play in full screen versus windowed? Also your display resolution, your aspect ratio, and also graphic filters can all just be basically set once and applied to all 7,600 games. That's great. One thing that they did here that really surprised me is that they worked on improving the level of the archived media with this release. See, here's the deal. When you search for old MS-DOS games on the internet, you will often get a RIP that may actually not be representative of the real release. See, a lot of these were put out on the internet when upload speeds were kind of small and storage was really expensive, so hackers removed things that were big, like the intro movies, maybe some cutscenes, and some CD soundtracks to save time and space. And so each one of these games, they've gone back to the actual source material to make sure that they're as accurate as possible. That's wild. I hadn't even considered that, but it makes sense. They also removed a lot of the copy protection for most of the games. See, a lot of PC games back in the day would have things like code wheels, or maybe there'd be a question requiring you to look in the manual, type in a word to actually play the game. But most of that has been removed because, again, they're trying to make this easy for pretty much everyone to jump into. Now, the good news is that all you really have to do is, if you run into that in a game, you either hit enter or the space bar or just type in a random key. Now, if they weren't able to remove it, not a big deal, because they've also scanned the original game manuals and the copy protection that would come with it for every one of these titles, and you can easily view that pretty much anytime you want. And speaking of manuals, again, that's another thing that they've included in here with pretty much every game that I've certainly looked at, where you can easily right-click on it and then go in there and read the actual manual. They've scanned them all, and that's really handy, not only for copy protection, but also just, you know, a lot of these PC games would assume that you would have the manual, and they don't have tutorials. And so a lot of times when you launch a game and you're like, it's not working the way you would expect it to. You know, maybe you're trying to get around the game and you're like, what am I supposed to do? Well, the manual's there to help you with that. It's nice to have it easily accessible right there off of the menu. I mentioned that there's this additional media that you can download if you want, and I highly recommend you do, because it's pretty cool. Because yeah, it's fun to be able to play the games, but to be able to read the books published at the time, or magazines that were released at the time, or listen to the game soundtracks, it's pretty cool. So here you see a bunch of books. These are mostly about DOS, which, again, you don't have to necessarily learn, but it is kind of interesting to dive in there and see some of this stuff. The magazines is where I spent a lot of time. That was really cool. Specifically, I was really digging the game publisher catalogs. So this would be supplemental stuff that they would put in big box games to basically tell you about their other titles. And they've scanned a bunch of these, and it's just, oh man, it's just like going back in time, looking at all this stuff. you know, all in one place and all digitally like this, scan and color. Yeah, this is pretty cool. Another thing that they did, and I guess it was fairly difficult to pull off, and that is they included in here adaptive auto CRT shaders. So basically these are scan lines that can be added to your game to make them look more like kind of what they originally did when released when playing on an old CRT television. Now, obviously, a lot of programs do this, and there are a ton of options. Again, the idea being here is that you don't need to put the research in, that this will basically just do it for you. So the cool thing is this will auto-choose the scan lines or shader that would look best depending on the game and the resolution that you're running it in. So remember, we're talking about decades of games here where some of the games would be CGA, EGA, SVGA, you know, the colors might be limited, the resolution might be limited, and this basically says, hey, you don't have to worry about any of that. It's going to choose the right one for you, and off you go. And so I'm showing you a couple examples of the scan lines off and also on. And it's important to remember that when these games are made, they were designed to be ran on a CRT with scan lines. And so sometimes when you look at these games, they can appear harsh if you don't have these scan lines turned on. Now, you're probably noticing that the shader has changed the color or saturation a little bit. I didn't actually notice it until I compared these side by side. I'm not entirely sure why it's doing that, but again, I'm just using the auto option. You don't have to do that. You can manually go in and choose whichever one you like best. By the way, this vertical shooter game here called Raptor, this is a really cool, I would say almost like a hidden gem. Not a lot of people talk about this game. I don't think I ever played it as a kid, discovered it in this collection, and yeah, as you can see here, it's pretty awesome. So I mentioned that this supports over 7,600 games, and as you can imagine, that is a lot to get through. Well, again, the good news is it's integrated into Launchbox, and because of that, it has a lot of the features that they've been working on for years, and one of them is to be able to sort by genre. This is huge, especially if you're not really familiar with some of the games that you may or may not want to play. And let's say we're going to search and just show me the first-person shooters, and then you can start there. Like if that's your favorite genre and you want to, or that's the games that you mostly play, it's cool to be able to start right there. Another big one is adventure games, right? A lot of people remember fondly playing their favorite adventure games on the PC. Well, going under there and sorting by adventure games, suddenly you see all these games that you may or may not have heard of, and you can easily like install them, play them, give them a shot.
So I should now introduce you to Falstaff here, one of my best creations. I have more of these guys in my menagerie, and I've even created one for you.
Jones! Mistress quickly must be calling!
The bard wrote many great words, my friend, and some might even have been designed with you in mind.
A couple other things I want to mention in case you are new to emulating MS-DOS games, and that is occasionally these older games run a little bit fast because they are not designed for modern hardware. However, there's a really easy way to control that. You see a game here called Mercenaries, and essentially the little characters are running around really quick. Well, there are some shortcut keys to basically slow the game down or speed it up if it's not running, you know, as smoothly as you like. So basically you hit Control F11 to slow it down, Control F12 to speed it up. You can also hit Alt-Enter to make the window full screen, and Alt-Enter again to make it windowed, so that's really nice, as well as Control F9 usually will exit you out. The other thing you might run into is the capture and release of the mouse within the window. That can be kind of weird sometimes whenever you are going back and forth between the emulation and Windows itself, so that is Control F10. And so that is a look at eXoDOS, and I am very glad that many of you reached out and said I should take a look at this project. Yeah, I'm pretty much blown away. This is a really cool community-driven product that you can tell a lot of passion went into to just make it awesome. And this is definitely going to be the way that I play a lot of these games going forward, but more importantly also, now I can recommend it to other people. You know, if you are looking to get into MS-DOS gaming and you don't necessarily want to get into the whole configuration thing or learn all the nuts and bolts of all that stuff, this is a great way to do that. And yeah, I'll be able to easily recommend it to people. So check out the website. I'll put a link down in the video description below. It's completely free and community driven. There is that really cool physical version of it. And I think they also have like a Discord channel and stuff like that. Yeah, give it a go. I think you'll be very impressed as well. And while this is only MS-DOS, they have been hinting that the next project will move into Windows 3.1, maybe Windows 95 and Windows 98. Oh, dude, if they do that, that would be amazing as well, because that introduces its whole other problems and complexities with drivers, and that was a mess back in the day. So if they could somehow streamline that, oh yeah, baby, I'm all in. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for subscribing, and take care.